Hyun-woo stood in the center of the grand chamber and felt very small. The room was enormous, built to hold representatives from 17 different alien species. Some of them floated in special tanks. Others stood on platforms high above the floor. A few glowed with their own light, their bodies made of something that looked like living crystal. He was the only human in the room. The air smelled strange here, filtered and processed to keep all the different species alive. Hyun-woo had been Earth's ambassador for 2 years now, but he still wasn't used to this place. Things are watching, endings not harm. The Galactic Council had been ruling the galaxy for over 4,000 years. Humanity had only joined 23 years ago. 23 years. That was nothing to these ancient species. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. It came from Thelnorax, the Velaran magistrate. The Velarans looked almost human, except their skin was pale blue and their eyes were completely black. Thelnorax was tall, maybe 7 feet, and he wore robes that marked his high position. Ambassador Hyun-woo, Thelnorax said. His voice was cold. We have brought you here to discuss a serious matter. Your species has violated the Treaty of Ascending Voices. Hyun-woo kept his face calm, but his heart started beating faster. Behind him, his aide, G1, shifted nervously. She was young, only 26, but she was brilliant at reading political situations. If she was nervous, this was bad. I'm not aware of any violation, Hyun-woo said carefully. Can you explain what you mean? On with you mean. Can you explain what you mean? Thelnorax waved one hand. Suddenly, holographic displays appeared all around the chamber. They showed human colony ships, mining operations, and resource extraction data. The images were clear and detailed. These are your colonies in the Corvin Expanse, Thelnorax said. 17 human settlements, all mining valuable resources. The Corvin Expanse was declared neutral territory 300 years ago. No species may claim it. Yet here you are, taking what does not belong to you. Hyun-woo studied the displays. The evidence looked real. Those were definitely human ships and human colonies. But something felt wrong about this whole situation. We established those colonies in good faith, Hyun-woo said. The council gave us star charts when we first joined. Those charts showed the Corvin Expanse as open territory. We followed the maps you gave us. Your ignorance is not an excuse, said another voice. This one came from Valmorthus, one of the prelate elders. The prelates were the oldest species in the council, and they looked it. Valmorthus was a thin, wrinkled being that seemed almost transparent. You should have verified the charts. You should have checked current territorial designations. This is your failure. Axer, G1 leaned close to Hyun-woo and whispered in Korean. This is a setup. Those charts were accurate when they gave them to us. Someone changed the designation recently. R. Hyun-woo nodded slightly. He'd already guessed that. But proving it was another matter. I request a formal arbitration hearing, Hyun-woo said, using the proper diplomatic language. As outlined in Section 12 of the Council Charter, any territorial dispute should be resolved through investigation and hearing before any judgment is made. Thelnorax smiled. But it wasn't a friendly expression. There will be no arbitration. The evidence is clear. The council has already decided. A chill ran down Hyun-woo's spine. The council had already decided? Without a hearing? That wasn't how things were supposed to work. But as he looked around the chamber, he saw that none of the other species seemed surprised. They'd all known this was coming. The council's judgment is as follows, Valmorthus announced. His ancient voice filled the chamber. Humanity will abandon all 17 colonies in the Corvin Expanse within 30 standard days. All extracted resources will be surrendered to the Council for proper distribution. Additionally, Earth will submit to economic sanctions for a period of 5 years. These sanctions will include limitations on trade routes, resource access, and colonization rights. That's insane, G1 said, forgetting diplomatic protocol. Those colonies have over 200,000 people. You can't just order us to abandon them in 30 days. We can, Thelnorak said. And we have. Furthermore, if humanity fails to comply with this judgment, the Council will enforce it militarily. The peacekeeping armada is ready to move. Hyunwoo felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced it down. You're threatening military action against human civilians? He asked quietly. We are promising enforcement of Council law, Valmorthus said. This is not a negotiation, Ambassador. This is a judgment. You have 30 days. The session ended. Just like that. After 4,000 years of supposed peaceful dispute resolution, the Council had delivered an ultimatum, backed by military force. No hearing, no investigation, no justice. Hyunwoo and Ji-won walked back to their quarters in silence. The space station that housed the Council was massive, with sections designed for different species. The human section was small and isolated, far from the centers of power. Once they were inside and the door was sealed, Ji-won exploded. They set us up. The Valorans gave us those charts on purpose, waited for us to build colonies, and then changed the territorial designation. This whole thing is a trap. I know, Hyunwoo said. He sat down heavily. The question is why? What do they gain from this? The Corvin Expanse has rare elements, Ji-won said. She pulled up data on her tablet. Specifically, the colonies are sitting on huge deposits of crystalline cores. Those are used in faster-than-light engines. They're worth a fortune. So the Valorans want the resources, Hyunwoo said. But why involve the whole council? Why make it an official judgment? Ji-won's eyes widened as she understood. Because they want to humble us. Earth has been expanding fast. We've established over 100 colonies in 23 years. The older species don't like it. They want to put us in our place. Show us that we're still the junior members of this club. Hyunwoo nodded slowly. That made sense. Humanity had been too successful, too ambitious. The ancient species of the Council wanted to remind Earth who really held the power. He activated his secure communication system and sent an encrypted message directly to Earth, to Prime Minister Sang-hoon. He explained everything that had happened, the ultimatum, the 30-day deadline, and the threat of military force. Then he waited. 3 hours later, a message came back. It was short, just 2 sentences, but they changed everything. Buy us time. Do not capitulate. Protocol Midnight is now active. Hyunwoo read the message 3 times. Protocol Midnight. He'd heard rumors about it. Whispers in military circles. It was supposed to be Earth's contingency plan. Something developed in secret just in case the galactic community turned hostile. He'd always hoped they would never need it. Ji-won was watching him carefully. What did they say? They said to buy time, Hyunwoo told her, and that we're not going to surrender. But the peacekeeping armada, Ji-won started. I know, Hyunwoo interrupted. The Council has over 800 ships ready to move against us. I know the odds. But apparently, Earth has a plan. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the stars, billions of them scattered across the darkness. Somewhere out there were the 17 human colonies. 200,000 people who had no idea their homes were about to become a battleground. Somewhere out there was Earth, humanity's homeworld, preparing for something the Galactic Council couldn't imagine. We have 30 days, Hyunwoo said quietly. Let's make sure we use every single one of them. Tomorrow, we start filing every legal challenge, every procedural objection, every bureaucratic delay we can think of. If they want to force us out, they're going to have to work for it. Ji-won smiled grimly. Earth gets ready, Hyunwoo said. Whatever Protocol Midnight is, they need time to activate it. That's our job now. We're not diplomats anymore. We're buying time for our people to prepare for war. The word hung in the air between them. War. After 4,000 years of peace, the Galactic Council was about to learn something about humanity that no amount of cultural exchange or diplomatic meetings had taught them. Humans didn't give up. And humans didn't forget. 24 days remained on the ultimatum when Hyun-woo requested another formal hearing. The council agreed. But their tone made it clear they thought this was pointless. They expected humanity to surrender. They always did. Every species that joined the council eventually learned the same lesson. The ancient species were in charge. The new species followed the rules. That was how it had worked for 4,000 years. But Hyun-woo had spent those 24 days studying council history. Ji-won had helped him dig through thousands of old records. What they found was disturbing. 17 species had joined the council over the centuries. Every single one had faced a crisis within their first 50 years of membership. Every single one had been forced to accept humiliating terms, economic sanctions, or territorial losses. It was always different. But the pattern was always the same. The council broke new species to keep them obedient. They're going to reject everything we present, Ji-won said. She was reviewing their documents one last time. Even if we had perfect proof of the conspiracy, they wouldn't care. I know, Hyun-woo said. But we're not trying to win the argument. We're just buying time. Outside the station, something huge was happening. The council had dispatched the 7th peacekeeping fleet to the edge of human space. 847 ships, including 12 massive dreadnoughts. It was the largest military force the council had moved in over 200 years. Fleet Commander Zolvathis led the fleet. He was Drathin, a species that looked like walking insects made of metal. The Drathin were the council's best warriors, disciplined and ruthless. Zolvathis had never lost a battle in 40 years of service. The fleet's orders were simple. Wait at the border of the Corvin Expanse. If humanity didn't evacuate the colonies in 30 days, move in and force them out. Minimal casualties if possible, but use whatever force was necessary. Zolvathis studied the reports about human military capabilities. They were not impressive. Earth had maybe 300 warships total, scattered across their various colonies. Most were small frigates and destroyers. Nothing that could stand against council dreadnoughts. The humans would see the fleet, understand they were overmatched, and surrender. It was logical. It was what always happened. But back on the council station, Hyun-woo was making life difficult for everyone. He challenged the authentication of every document. He demanded testimony from the automated monitoring stations that had recorded human mining activity. He invoked obscure council bylaws about proper notification procedures. He questioned the legal authority of the prelate elders to make unilateral judgments. Each challenge took time. Hours turned into days. The council members grew frustrated, but they couldn't simply ignore him. Their own laws required them to address each objection properly. Thel Norax, the Valoran magistrate, was getting angry. Very angry. On day 26, he requested a private meeting with Hyun-woo. They met in a neutral conference room. Just the two of them and their aides. This is pointless, Thel Norax said bluntly. You know you cannot win. The council has decided. The fleet is in position. In 4 days, your people will be removed from the Corvin Expanse, one way or another. Hyun-woo sipped his coffee calmly. Coffee was one of the few Earth luxuries available on the station. Thel Norax leaned forward. Because I am offering you a better option. The Valoran Empire has significant economic power. If humanity agrees to accept our guidance, we can reduce the sanctions. Perhaps even eliminate them entirely. Guidance, Hyun-woo repeated. You mean control? I mean partnership, Thel Norax said smoothly. You are a young species. You have much to learn. The Valoran Empire can teach you how to navigate council politics, how to prosper within the system. All we ask is that you accept our experience and wisdom. Ji-won made a disgusted sound, But Hyun-woo stayed calm. "Let me make sure I understand," he said. "You create a fake territorial dispute using fraudulent star charts. You pressure the council into making an illegal judgment without proper arbitration. You threaten military action against civilians. And now you're offering to protect us from the consequences if we become your junior partners." Thel Norax's black eyes gleamed. Such harsh words. But yes, essentially. This is how the galaxy works, Ambassador. The strong guide the weak. The ancient teach the young. You can accept this reality, or you can be crushed by it. The choice is yours. Hyun-woo stood up. "I think we're done here. You're making a mistake," Thel Norax warned. "In 4 days, your colonies will be empty or destroyed. Your economy will be crippled. Your expansion will stop. All because of pride. Maybe," Hyun-woo said. "Or maybe you're the one making a mistake." He walked out, Ji-won following close behind. Meanwhile, something strange was happening throughout human space. Every single human ship, civilian and military, was moving. Colony transports were evacuating people from the 17 disputed colonies. Cargo ships were hauling away equipment and supplies. Even the orbital stations were being stripped. The Council's monitoring systems tracked all of it. They assumed humanity was preparing to surrender, getting ready to abandon the colonies as ordered. But there was one thing they didn't see. One detail that didn't appear in any of their reports. Earth's defense force had gone completely dark. Captain Dae-hyun commanded the flagship Indomitable, one of Earth's largest warships. 2 weeks ago, he'd received sealed orders directly from Earth Defense Command. The orders were simple but shocking. Pull back every military vessel to the Sol system. Make it look like Earth was preparing to defend the homeworld. Let the Council think humanity was scared. But that wasn't the real order. The real order was to activate every stealth system, hide the entire fleet in the asteroid fields and gas giant orbits of the Corvan expanse. And wait. For 2 weeks, Dae-hyun and 300 other captains had been holding position in absolute silence. Their ships were powered down to minimal levels. Their stealth fields made them nearly invisible, and they were spread throughout the entire expanse, hidden in places the Council would never think to look, because the Council didn't use stealth technology. They considered it dishonorable, sneaky, beneath the dignity of proper military forces. Humans had no such concerns. Dae-hyun watched his tactical displays. The Council's 7th Fleet was holding position at the border, exactly where human intelligence had predicted they would be. 847 ships, all sitting together in a neat formation. Perfect targets. On day 28, Hyun-woo filed his last legal challenge. He knew it would be rejected. He knew time was running out. But he'd done his job. He'd bought Earth 4 full weeks. Whatever Protocol Midnight was, it should be ready by now. Back on Earth, in a secret military facility beneath the Gobi Desert, Admiral Bo-ra reviewed the final preparations. She was 53 years old and had spent her entire career planning for this exact scenario. The scenario where Earth's new galactic neighbors turned out to be just like every empire in human history. Conquerors who smiled while they sharpened their knives. The room around her was filled with tactical displays showing everything. The 7th Fleet's position. The evacuation status of the colonies. The hidden locations of every human ship. And most importantly, the status of Project Midnight. All systems showed green. "Ma'am," her aide said quietly. "The Council has scheduled the final session. Tomorrow, they'll demand Ambassador Hyun-woo's official response. Surrender or face the fleet." "I know," Bo-ra said. "Send the signal to Admiral Hyun-woo." "Admiral Hyun-woo, ma'am, not Ambassador Hyun-woo." Bo-ra smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You heard me correctly. It's time for the Ambassador's brother to reveal himself. And time for the Council to learn what Protocol Midnight really means." Time Sidon 4. 17014. Time Sidon. The next morning, Hyun-woo entered the council chamber, knowing it might be the last time he stood there as a diplomat. The chamber was packed. Every species had sent representatives. They all wanted to see the moment when proud, arrogant humanity finally bent the knee. Valmorthus, the ancient prelate elder, spoke first. Ambassador Hyun-woo, you have exhausted every legal option. You have filed every possible challenge, but the time has come for your final answer. Will humanity evacuate the Corvan expanse peacefully, or must we use force? And Hyun-woo looked around the chamber. He saw smug satisfaction on some faces, pity on others. A few species looked uncomfortable, remembering when they had stood in his position years ago. I have a counteroffer, Hyun-woo said. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Counter-offer? That wasn't how this worked. You didn't make counter-offers to council ultimatums. Humanity will evacuate 15 of the 17 colonies immediately. Hyun-woo continued. In exchange, the council will conduct a full investigation into how we received inaccurate star charts, and we will maintain provisional rights to 2 colonies while that investigation proceeds. Thel Norak stood up so fast his chair fell over. This is outrageous. You do not make demands of the council. You do not. The 7th Fleet has already entered the Corvan expanse, Valmorthus interrupted. His voice was cold. It is too late for negotiations, Ambassador. The enforcement action has begun. 17-7. The 17-17-7. Hyun-woo felt his heart skip a beat. They'd moved the fleet early. That meant, then the Council has just authorized unprovoked military action against human territory without a formal declaration of war, Hyun-woo said carefully. That violates 17 articles of your own charter. It violates nothing, Thel Norak snapped. We are enforcing a legal judgment. Your people had 30 days to comply. They did not. Now, they face the consequences. Hyun-woo's expression changed. Slowly, a smile spread across his face. It was the smile of someone whose trap had just been sprung perfectly. Thank you, Magistrate, he said quietly. Thank you for confirming that the Council has sent a military fleet into human territory. And thank you for doing it in front of all these witnesses. He activated his communication device. Show them. Every screen in the council chamber suddenly displayed the same image. Live feeds from the Corvan expanse. The 7th Fleet had indeed arrived, spreading out through the system in standard enforcement formation. But the 17 colonies were gone. Empty. Not a single human remained. And then the proximity alarm started screaming. Fleet Commander Zolvathus had seen many things in his 40 years of military service. But he had never seen his entire tactical display light up with threat warnings all at once. One moment, his fleet was alone in the Corvan expanse. The next moment, they were surrounded. Ships appeared everywhere, from asteroid fields, from behind moons, from the rings of gas giants, from positions that should have been empty space. They just appeared, like ghosts, becoming solid. Over 2,000 human warships, all around his 847 vessels. How? Zolvathus whispered. His claws clicked against his command console in shock. How did they hide so many ships? His tactical officer's voice was shaking. Commander, they're using some kind of stealth technology. Our sensors never detected them. They've been here the whole time, waiting for us. Zolvathus felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. The human ships weren't attacking yet. They were just there, surrounding the 7th Fleet in a perfect sphere. Every council ship had multiple human vessels pointing weapons at it. Then a transmission came through. A human face appeared on every screen in the fleet. It was a man in a military uniform, older than Ambassador Hyun-woo, but with the same sharp eyes. Fleet Commander Zolvathus, the human said. My name is Admiral Hyun-woo, of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered a designated human military exercise zone. Power down your weapons, and prepare to be escorted out of this sector. Back in the council chamber, Everyone was watching the same broadcast. The delegates who had been so confident before now sat in stunned silence. Ambassador Hyun-woo was still smiling. Council members, I'd like to introduce my older brother. Admiral Hyun-woo has been coordinating Earth's defense forces while I've been here, engaging in what you thought were pointless legal delays. Thelnorax's blue face had turned almost white. This is impossible. Our intelligence reports said Earth had less than 300 ships total. Where did you get 2,000 vessels? You saw 300 ships, G1 said, speaking up for the first time. The ones we wanted you to see. The ones we let your spies report on. The rest have been under construction for the past 10 years, in facilities your intelligence never found. She paused, enjoying the moment. You assumed we were naive newcomers who would share everything about our military capabilities. You were wrong. Sighed. On the screen, the standoff continued. Fleet Commander Zolvathis was trying to negotiate, but his voice sounded strained. Admiral, this fleet is operating under Council authority. We are enforcing a legal judgment. If you interfere, you will be making war on the entire Galactic Council. Admiral Hyun-woo's expression didn't change. Commander, you brought a military fleet into human territory without a declaration of war. You intended to attack civilian colonies. Under Earth Defense Force protocols, that makes you an invading force. I have full authorization to respond with appropriate measures. You're outnumbered, Zolvathis said, but he didn't sound convinced. The Council has thousands of ships. If you destroy this fleet, more will come. Perhaps, Admiral Hyun-woo said, or perhaps you should look more carefully at what's pointing at your ships right now. The Council members watched as the tactical displays zoomed in on the human weapons. They weren't standard plasma cannons or missile batteries. They were something different. What are those? Valmorthus demanded. Ambassador Hyun-woo answered. We call them God rods. Tungsten projectiles, each one the size of a telephone pole, launched from orbital platforms at a significant fraction of light speed. They don't use explosives. They don't need to. Pure, kinetic energy. He let that sink in. Each one hits with the force of a small nuclear weapon. And we have over 10,000 of them positioned throughout this system. All targeted and ready to fire. The chamber exploded into panicked voices. Multiple species started shouting at once. This was insane. This was terrifying. Kinetic bombardment weapons were theoretical, something that existed in war games and academic papers. No one actually built them. No one except humans, apparently. You wouldn't dare, Thelnorax said, but his voice shook. The Council would what? Ambassador Hyun-woo interrupted. Send more fleets? We've had 23 years to study how you fight. We know your tactics. We know your technology. We know your response times. Most importantly, we know that you've never faced an enemy that was willing to evacuate entire colonies just to lure your fleet into a trap. He walked to the center of the chamber. And for the first time since humans joined the Council, everyone was watching him with complete attention. Let me tell you what happens next, Hyun-woo said. You have two choices. First choice. Fleet Commander Zolvathis orders his ships to power down and accept escort out of the Corvan expanse. No one gets hurt. No one dies. We all go back to talking like civilized beings. And the second choice? Valmorthus asked quietly. The second choice is that we demonstrate exactly why Earth spent 23 years preparing for this moment. On the tactical displays, everyone could see what he meant. The human ships weren't just surrounding the Seventh Fleet. They had target locks on every single Council vessel. The God rods were positioned above 3 uninhabited moons in the system. And there were other weapons, other systems, that the Council's sensors couldn't even identify. Fleet Commander Zolvathis was facing the same reality. His tactical officer had run the numbers. In a straight fight, the Seventh Fleet would be destroyed. Maybe they could take some human ships with them, but the outcome wasn't in question. This is madness, Zolvathis transmitted. You're risking war with the entire galaxy over a territorial dispute. No, Admiral Hyunwoo replied. You risked war by assuming we would just surrender because you've always won before. We're just responding to what you started. All. In the council chamber, Ambassador Hyunwoo continued. For 4,000 years, the council has maintained peace through intimidation. You accept new species, you wait for them to expand, and then you create a crisis to break them. You teach them that the ancient species are in charge, and the young species obey. He looked directly at Valmorthus. We found the records. All 17 species that joined before us faced similar situations. Territorial disputes, trade conflicts, diplomatic incidents, always different circumstances, but always the same result. The new species learned their place. That's how stability is maintained, Valmorthus said stiffly. Without hierarchy, there would be chaos. Without hierarchy, there would be equality. Ji-won shot back. But you can't allow that, because if new species were actually treated as equals, they might challenge the power of the ancient species. They might demand real representation. They might refuse to follow orders from beings who've ruled for thousands of years. Several younger species in the chamber were listening very carefully now. A few delegates were nodding slightly. They'd never heard anyone say these things out loud before. Thelnorak slammed his hand on his console. This is treason. This is truth, Hyunwoo interrupted. And you hate it, because we're not playing along. We didn't submit when you expected us to. We didn't beg for mercy. We didn't accept our place in your hierarchy. Instead, we prepared. We built weapons. We trained soldiers. We got ready for the day you would try to humble us. He activated another display. This one showed data that made several council members gasp. For the past 5 years, we've had intelligence operatives throughout council space, Hyunwoo explained. We know your fleet positions. We know your supply lines. We know your communication protocols. We know which species are truly loyal to the council, and which ones are only pretending. We know everything. It was a bluff, mostly. Earth's intelligence network wasn't that extensive. But the council didn't know that. And the few pieces of accurate information in the display were enough to make them doubt. You've been spying on us, Valmorthus said. There was real emotion in his ancient voice now. For years, you've been preparing for war while pretending to be peaceful members of the council. We've been preparing to defend ourselves, Hyunwoo corrected. There's a difference. We hoped we would never need it. We hoped the Galactic Council was actually what it claimed to be. A union of equals, dedicated to peace and cooperation. He paused. But we're humans. We've seen empires before. We've seen what happens to weaker nations when they trust the promises of stronger ones. Our own history taught us never to depend on someone else's mercy. So we prepared. And it turns out, our paranoia was justified. On the tactical display, Fleet Commander Xolvathus made his decision. He'd been a soldier for 40 years, and he knew a losing position when he saw it. All ships, power down weapons, he ordered. Maintain defensive shields only. We will accept human escort out of the sector. His officers stared at him in shock. They'd never retreated before. The 7th Fleet had never backed down from anyone. Commander, the Council ordered us to... His tactical officer started. The Council ordered us to enforce a judgment. Xolvathus interrupted. They did not order us to commit suicide. Look at those tactical displays. Look at the positions. Look at the weapons. We cannot win this engagement. I will not sacrifice 47,000 lives for political theater. He opened a channel to Admiral Hyunwoo. We accept your terms. My fleet will power down and accept escort. But know this, Admiral. The Council will not forget this. They will not forgive this. I'm counting on it, Admiral Hyunwoo replied. Back in the Council chamber, The delegates watched in disbelief as the mighty Seventh Fleet went dark. One by one, 847 warships shut down their weapons and submitted to human control. It was the first time in 4,000 years that a council fleet had surrendered. Ambassador Hyunwoo let the silence stretch for a long moment. Then he spoke again, his voice hard and clear. Now, shall we discuss real negotiations? Or would the council like to send more fleets to learn the same lesson? The council chamber stayed silent for exactly 12 seconds. Then, everyone started shouting at once. Some species demanded immediate retaliation. Others called for emergency sessions. A few delegates were already trying to contact their home governments. The carefully maintained order of 4,000 years had just shattered like glass. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood calmly in the center of the chaos and waited. Ji-won stood beside him, her hand resting near the device that controlled their communication systems. If things went wrong, they had one last card to play. Valmorthus finally restored order by activating the chamber's sound dampeners. The ancient prelate looked older than ever, his transparent skin seeming to fade even more. "You have made a terrible mistake," Valmorthus said quietly. "You have humiliated the council in front of the entire galaxy. You have proven that humanity cannot be trusted, and you have shown that you are willing to use violence to resist legitimate authority." "Legitimate?" Hyunwoo asked. "There was nothing legitimate about your judgment. You used fraudulent evidence to justify seizing our colonies. You denied us proper arbitration. You sent a fleet to attack civilians. And you did it all because you wanted to teach us to obey." He looked around the chamber. "But I'll admit, you're right about one thing. We have made violence part of this conversation. So let me be very clear about what that violence means." Admiral Hyunwoo's face appeared on the displays again. He was speaking from his command ship, the Resolute, which was now positioned at the center of the human fleet. "Council members," the admiral said, "I'm going to give you 3 options. Think carefully before you choose." He held up one finger. Option 1. Peaceful resolution. The 7th Fleet leaves human space unharmed. The Council agrees to open genuine arbitration on the colonial dispute. We share some of our stealth technology as a gesture of goodwill. Relations continue, but with mutual respect instead of hierarchy. Everyone goes home alive. 8. A second finger. Option 2. Limited engagement. If you decide to fight, we will disable every ship in the 7th Fleet without killing anyone. We'll hold the crews for prisoner exchange. You'll face embarrassment and the loss of 800 ships, but no deaths. After that, negotiations will happen anyway, but from a position where humanity's strength is undeniable. A third finger. Option 3. Full demonstration. If the Council sends more fleets, if you authorize attacks on human territory, if you try to punish us for defending ourselves, then Earth will show you exactly what we've been preparing for 23 years. And I promise you, Council members, you will not enjoy that lesson. Thelnorax stood up, his blue face twisted with rage. "You cannot threaten the entire Galactic Council. We have thousands of ships. We have weapons you can't imagine. We have..." He stopped talking because Ji-won had activated something on her tablet. New images appeared on all the displays. They showed Valoran communication records. Secret messages between Thelnorax and mining corporations. Orders to falsify territorial designations. Plans to claim the Corvin Expanse's resources. Everything. "We hacked your personal server 3 weeks ago," Ji-won said sweetly. "We have proof of the entire conspiracy. Every message, every order, every lie. Ji-won. Every lie. Ji-won." Thelnorax's face went from blue to almost purple. Around the chamber, other Valoran delegates were staring at him in horror. Even species that didn't care about the conspiracy were shocked by how blatant it was. This is fabricated," Thelnorax stammered. "It's authenticated with your own encryption keys," Ji-won replied. We also have testimony from the technicians who actually changed the territorial database. They're in protective custody on Earth right now, very eager to tell their story in exchange for asylum. The magistrate opened his mouth, then closed it. There was nothing he could say. The evidence was overwhelming. But the evidence of conspiracy didn't change the military situation. The Council still had thousands of ships. Humanity had just revealed they were more dangerous than expected, but they were still one species against 17. Val Morthus seemed to be thinking the same thing. You have proven the Valoran magistrate is corrupt. Very well. He will face justice. But that does not change the fundamental situation. Humanity has defied a council judgment and threatened a council fleet. There must be consequences. Then send another fleet, Hyunwoo said quietly. See what happens. It was a challenge. A direct, unmistakable challenge to the council's authority. Before anyone could respond, something unexpected happened. 4 Valoran warships that had been embedded with the 7th Fleet suddenly opened fire on the human vessels. It was a desperate gambit by Valoran commanders loyal to Thel Norax. If they could start a battle, if they could force both sides into shooting, then maybe the conspiracy would be forgotten in the chaos of war. Admiral Hyunwoo's response was so fast it seemed impossible. In 4.3 seconds, all 4 Valoran destroyers were disabled. Not destroyed, disabled. Precision strikes took out their weapons, their engines, their communication systems, but their life support remained intact. Their crews were unharmed. How? Someone in the council chamber whispered. Targeting computers, Ji-won explained. She was pulling up more data, showing it to everyone. We've been studying council ship designs for years. We know exactly where every critical system is located. We can disable any council vessel without killing the crew. She paused. Unless we decide we want to kill the crew, the implications hung in the air like smoke. Humanity could destroy council ships. They could also disable them surgically. That meant every engagement would be a choice. Kill or capture. Destroy or disable. It meant humans controlled the level of violence. Admiral Hyunwoo continued speaking, his voice calm and professional. We're deploying recovery teams to the disabled Valoran ships now. The crews will be treated well and returned unharmed. But let this be a lesson. We are prepared for every scenario. We have planned for every contingency. We have trained for every type of combat. He leaned closer to the camera. The Council has fought civilized wars for thousands of years. Wars with rules. Wars with honor. Wars where everyone understands the boundaries. But humanity learned war differently. We learned it on one planet, fighting ourselves, for all of our history. We learned total war. We learned that the only rule that matters is survival. In the council chamber, Fleet Commander Xolvathus appeared on screen. He'd been watching everything from his flagship. Council members, Xolvathus said. His insect face was hard to read, but his voice sounded tired. I am submitting my official tactical assessment. We cannot defeat the humans in the Corvan Expanse. Possibly not in any direct engagement. Their technology is more advanced than we believed. Their tactics are more aggressive than we anticipated. And their willingness to take casualties is beyond our cultural norms. He paused. But more importantly, they understand something we have forgotten. They know how to fight an enemy that has superior numbers. They know how to make victory so costly that it becomes defeat. I have read their military history. They have fought this way before, against their own kind. And they are very, very good at it. Val Morthus listened carefully. The ancient prelate had lived through many crises, but never one quite like this. What do you recommend, Fleet Commander? Val Morthus asked. Option 1, Xolvathus said immediately. Accept the peaceful resolution. Begin real negotiations, because if we choose option 3, if we force them to demonstrate their full capabilities, I believe we will regret it for generations. Ambassador Hyunwoo spoke up again. The fleet commander is wise, But let me add one more thing. One more piece of information that might help the council decide. He nodded to G1, who activated another display. This one showed something that made several council members gasp. It was a star map, but not of human space. It was of the entire council territory. And on it were marked hundreds of locations. Weapons platforms, hidden bases, stealth ships in deep orbit, supply caches. Sisters 19. 7 bases, for 5 years, Hyunwoo said. We've been positioning assets throughout council space. Right now, we have weapons that can reach any council homeworld within hours. We have intelligence networks on 17 planets. We have sympathetic allies among species that are tired of ancient species control. It was another bluff, mostly. The assets were real, but nowhere near as extensive as the display suggested. But again, the council didn't know that. You've been preparing for war since you joined, Valmorthis said. It wasn't a question. We've been preparing to survive, Hyunwoo corrected. There's a difference. War is what happens when one side tries to conquer. Survival is what happens when the other side refuses to be conquered. Thanks for watching. End quote. He walked to the center of the chamber again. Here's the truth that the council doesn't want to admit. You're not a peaceful union of equals. You're an empire. The ancient species control everything. The younger species do what they're told. And anyone who resists gets crushed. Several younger species delegates were nodding now. They'd never heard anyone say this out loud, but they'd all thought it. We know this system, Hyunwoo continued. We've seen it before on Earth. Empires that claim to bring peace and civilization, while actually bringing control and exploitation. Empires that lasted for centuries until someone finally stood up and said, no. You think you're that someone? Valmorthis asked. We're humans, Hyunwoo replied. Saying no to empires is kind of our thing. He activated his communication device one more time. Admiral, show them what option 3 looks like. Just a demonstration. Dumb. On every screen, the view changed. The human fleet was still surrounding the 7th Fleet, but now other weapons were activating. The God Rods, those massive kinetic bombardment weapons. 3 uninhabited moons in the Corvin system had been selected as targets. Dead rocks, no atmosphere, no life. Just targets. The God Rods fired. Tungsten projectiles, each weighing several tons, accelerated to incredible speeds. They hit the 3 moons within seconds of each other. The moons didn't just shatter. They ceased to exist as coherent bodies. The kinetic energy was so massive that the moons literally vaporized, turning into expanding clouds of superheated debris. The council chamber was absolutely silent. That's what option 3 means, Hyunwoo said quietly. Those were uninhabited moons. But the same weapons could target cities, fleets, installations, anything. He let that sink in. We don't want to do that. We don't want war. But we will absolutely defend ourselves with every weapon we have. And we have weapons you didn't know existed. Valmorthis stared at the images of the destroyed moons. He'd lived for over 1,000 years. He'd seen civilizations rise and fall, but he'd never seen anything quite like this. What do you want? The ancient prelate asked finally. Respect, Hyunwoo said simply. Real respect. Not the fake kind where you pat us on the head and tell us we're doing well. We want a seat at the table as equals. We want genuine arbitration. We want the council to actually be what it claims to be. And if we refuse, then we leave the council, Hyunwoo said. We establish our own alliance, and we offer membership to any species that's tired of being controlled. I think you'll be surprised how many species take that offer. The chamber fell silent again. The council faced a choice it had never faced before. Submit to demands from a younger species, or risk losing everything they'd built over 4,000 years. It was a hell of a choice. The council had 72 hours to decide. 3 days to choose between accepting humanity's demands or facing consequences they couldn't predict. Those 3 days felt longer than the previous 23 years of human membership combined. On the first day, the council split into factions. Some species wanted immediate agreement. Others wanted to fight. Most were somewhere in between, trying to figure out which choice would hurt them less. But something unexpected started happening. 3 smaller species, the Rilan Commerce Union, the Havoth Collective, and the Sorathi Federation, made a public announcement that shocked everyone. They were leaving the Galactic Council, not because humanity forced them, not because of the crisis, but because they were tired. Tired of following orders from ancient species. Tired of economic policies that favored the old powers. Tired of pretending they had equal voices when everyone knew they didn't. And they were forming an alliance with Earth. Ambassador Hyunwoo watched the announcement from his quarters. Ji-won stood beside him, equally surprised. "Did you know about this?" Ji-won asked. "No," Hyunwoo admitted. "But I'm not surprised. We've been talking quietly with younger species for years. Just conversations. Sharing experiences. Apparently, they were more unhappy than we realized." The defection of 3 species sent shockwaves through the council. In 4,000 years, no member species had voluntarily left. The fact that it happened now, during this crisis, made everything worse for the ancient powers, because it proved Hyunwoo's point. The council wasn't a union of equals. It was a hierarchy, and the species at the bottom were tired of it. On the second day, Human Intelligence Officer Tae Yang made another discovery. Working with sympathetic investigators from several council species, he'd been digging deeper into the Valoran conspiracy. What he found was worse than anyone expected. The prelates had known. The oldest, most respected species in the council had known about the trap with the star charts. They hadn't created it, but they'd let it happen. They wanted to see humanity humbled just as much as the Valorans did. When this information became public, the council chamber exploded into accusations and denials. Species that had trusted the prelates for thousands of years felt betrayed. The ancient species that had seemed wise and fair were revealed to be just as political and manipulative as everyone else. The unity of the council, already cracked, started to crumble. Meanwhile, military analysts across council space were reaching the same conclusion. Fleet Commander Zolvathus's report had been classified, but leaked copies were spreading through military channels. The humans couldn't be defeated. Not in a direct war. They had better stealth technology. They had kinetic weapons that made planetary defenses useless. They had aggressive tactics that council forces weren't trained to counter. And most importantly, they were willing to accept casualties in ways that council species hadn't done for centuries. One classified report from a Drathine tactical officer put it bluntly. Humans don't fight to win battles. They fight to make losing so painful that the enemy gives up. They are not warriors seeking glory. They are survivors who weaponize determination itself. On the third day, as the deadline approached, the Galactic Council convened in full session. Every species sent their highest representatives. The chamber was more crowded than it had been in centuries. Prelate Elder Valmorthus spoke first. At over 1,200 years old, he was one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy. He'd seen so much, but he'd never seen anything quite like this. "I have lived a very long time," Valmorthus began. His voice was weaker than usual. "I have seen 17 species join this council. I have watched civilizations grow, from primitive planets to spacefaring powers. I thought I understood how the galaxy worked." He paused. "I was wrong." The chamber went silent. A prelate admitting error was almost unheard of. "We made a fundamental mistake with humanity," Valmorthus continued. "We assumed they were like every other species. We thought they wanted our approval, our validation, our permission to exist in our galaxy. We were wrong. Humans don't seek to join our hierarchy. They seek to destroy the very concept of hierarchy. He looked directly at Ambassador Hyun-woo. And perhaps that is exactly what we need. Perhaps this council has grown stagnant. Perhaps we have become what we always claimed to oppose an empire in everything but name. Valmorthus turned to address the full council. I vote to accept humanity's terms. All of them. Not because I fear their weapons, though I do, but because they are right. We have corrupted what this council was meant to be, and it took a young, aggressive, stubborn species to show us our own failures. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. If Valmorthus was voting yes, if the most ancient prelate was accepting the terms, then everything really had changed. One by one, other species voted. Some voted yes out of pragmatism, some out of fear, some out of genuine hope that reform would benefit them. The Valoran Empire tried to abstain, but their own government was in chaos. Thel Norax had been arrested. The evidence of conspiracy was overwhelming. They had no credibility left. Thangs Velo. When we fard 44-1, there will see a 2-3. Final vote. 14 species for acceptance. 1 against. 2 abstentions. The motion passed. Over the following weeks, the council implemented changes that would have been unthinkable before. New species would get full voting rights immediately. No more probationary periods, no more junior status. Military actions required approval from a mixed species tribunal, not just the ancient powers. Neutral territories would be managed by rotating councils, not permanent assignments. And perhaps most importantly, the ancient species had to open their historical archives. Thousands of years of secret decisions, closed-door meetings, and private agreements were now public record. The galaxy was learning its own history, and not everyone liked what they saw. 6 months passed. Ambassador Hyun-woo stood in the council chamber again, but everything was different now. The seating had been rearranged into a circle instead of a hierarchy. Humans sat next to prelates who sat next to newly contacted species. Everyone was equal. Well, theoretically equal. In practice, everyone knew that Earth had become the most powerful single species in the Council, not through control or manipulation, but through demonstrated capability and willingness to fight. Hyun-woo was speaking about a proposal for joint military exercises when something interrupted. A new species had made first contact. The Corial Syndicate, just developing faster than light travel, had reached out to the Council. The old protocols would have started immediately. Evaluation periods. Integration requirements. All the systems designed to teach new species their place. But Hyun-woo stood up and made a different suggestion. Why don't we ask them what they want? He said. Instead of telling them what they need, why don't we just ask? The chamber was silent for a moment. Then, one by one, delegates nodded. It was such a simple idea, but it had never been done before. A young human diplomat named Min-ji was assigned to greet the Corial representatives. She met them at the entrance to the council chamber with a warm smile. "Welcome," she said. "You're not here to serve. You're here to lead, alongside the rest of us. What do you want to accomplish? How can we help?" The Corial representatives looked confused. They'd expected tests and requirements. They'd expected to prove themselves worthy of joining the Great Galactic Council. Instead, they were being treated as equals from the first moment. That became the new normal. That became what the Council actually was, instead of what it had always claimed to be. Back on Earth, Admiral Hyun-woo retired from active military service. He'd done his job. He'd protected humanity when the Council tried to humble them. Now others could handle peacetime duties. He took a teaching position at the new Galactic Defense Academy, where students from 30 different species learned human tactical doctrine. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The Council's enemies were now teaching the Council's soldiers how to fight. But the galaxy was safer for it. Because everyone understood now that aggression had consequences. That bullying wouldn't be tolerated. That might did not make right. Captain Dae-hyun took command of the first Joint Human Council Exploration Fleet. Ships from 12 species working together, pushing into unknown space. It was everything the Council should have been doing for centuries. G1 became Earth's first interspecies intelligence director. Her job was making sure humanity never again faced threats without knowing they were coming. The network she built was extensive, sophisticated, and completely transparent to the Council. No more secrets, no more conspiracies. Tae Yang led a task force hunting down the remnants of various intelligence networks and corruption. Turned out the Valorans weren't the only species that had been manipulating the system. There were decades of investigations ahead. Fleet Commander Zolvathus surprised everyone by becoming humanity's closest military ally. The Drathen commander, who had surrendered his fleet, now worked closely with Earth admirals to reform Council military doctrine. He wrote a book called The Day I Learned Fear, that became required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. In it, he wrote, "I thought I understood warfare. I thought I understood strategy. Then I faced humans, and I realized I understood nothing. They don't fight like we do. They fight like a species that spent 10,000 years learning from their own mistakes. The galaxy should be grateful that humans chose to use those lessons for defense, not conquest." 2 years after the crisis, a historian named Tae Rin published a comprehensive analysis of what happened. It became the definitive account of what people were calling the Reformation. The final section of her book read, "The Galactic Council expected humanity to follow the pattern. Resist briefly, then submit to the established order. They couldn't imagine a species that would spend decades preparing for betrayal. A species that would sacrifice pride for strategic advantage. A species that would risk total war rather than accept subjugation. But humans had learned these lessons already. On Earth, through thousands of years of our own brutal history, we learned what empires look like even when they call themselves councils. We learned what subjugation looks like even when they call it integration. So, when the Council tried to humble us, we didn't just resist. We broke their system. We freed their subjects. We left them speechless, not because we wanted to conquer, but because we refused to be conquered. That is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not dominance, but defiance of dominance. Not power, but the willingness to challenge power. The Council is stronger now. Not because humans lead it, but because humans proved that no one should lead it unchallenged. Every species has value. Every voice deserves to be heard. Every civilization has the right to determine its own future. These should have been obvious principles. But they weren't. It took humanity's brutal response to make them real. The galaxy will never be the same. And that's exactly how it should be. Prelate Elder Val Morthus lived another 10 years after the crisis. In his final days, surrounded by caretakers from 6 different species, he asked to speak with Ambassador Hyun Woo one last time. Hyun Woo came immediately. The ancient being was fading, his transparent body barely visible. "I wanted to tell you something," Val Morthus whispered. "Something I should have said 2 years ago." "What's that?" Hyun Woo asked gently. "Thank you." The old prelate managed a small smile. "Thank you for showing us what we had become. Thank you for having the courage to fight back. Thank you for making us better." Eski, Eski, Eski. He paused, gathering strength for his final words. "We grew old. We grew comfortable. We forgot that evolution never stops. Not biological evolution. Not social evolution. Not political evolution. You reminded us. And in doing so, you may have saved us from our own stagnation." Those were his last words. Val Morthus, who had lived for 1,247 years, died peacefully, knowing that the galaxy was better than he'd left it. His funeral was attended by representatives from over 100 species. Humans stood shoulder to shoulder with prelates, with Valorans, with Drathen, with beings from across the galaxy. All equals, all united, all part of something that was finally, truly, what it claimed to be. As Hyun Woo stood at the memorial service, looking at the diverse crowd of species mourning together, he thought about what they'd accomplished. Not through violence, though violence had been necessary, not through conquest, though they'd proven they could conquer if needed. They'd accomplished it by refusing to accept the way things were, by demanding better, by being willing to fight for a galaxy where strength meant protecting others, not controlling them. That was the human way. That was what they'd brought to the stars. And the galaxy, shocked and speechless at first, had ultimately embraced it. Because deep down, everyone had been waiting for someone to stand up and say no to the old powers. Everyone had wanted someone to prove that change was possible. Everyone had hoped for something better. Humanity didn't just fight for Earth. They fought for every species that had been told to accept their place. Every civilization that had been taught to submit. They fought for the idea that the future could be different from the past. And they won. Not just the battle, not just the crisis, but the future itself. The galaxy had changed, and Earth's brutal response, calculated and overwhelming and unapologetic, had been the catalyst that freed thousands of worlds from subtle tyranny. The Council would never be the same. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity wouldn't have it any other way.